Right. And yeah. Okay, well, I think let's kick off. So if you're just joining us, apologies again for the late start. Welcome to those of you already jumping in on the chat. It's always great to see who's joining us and where you're from. And yes, we've, yeah, as ever, I'm sure we're going to have people from not just all around the country, but you see, we've already got Norwich, Sheffield, Edinburgh, Dublin, all coming in. And have we got anybody from overseas? Because certainly one of our speakers tonight is sitting in Helsinki. So welcome to anybody as well from outside the UK who's joining us tonight. And yeah, it's currently 5:39 in Iceland. I wonder if we've got anybody from Iceland joining us. Somebody from South Carolina, US, brilliant. Somebody from Florida and from Milton Keynes. I'm from Derbyshire, brilliant. So see, we're truly international hit. Hi from Brazil, welcome from Brazil. Gosh, Burton-on-Trent, Chicago. Ciao. Oh, brilliant. So 12:30 in Chicago. Okay, brilliant. Well, do use the chat and the Q&A in the next hour or so, because what's going to be happening is we're going to hand over in a couple of minutes to our key speaker tonight, Will Gray. And he's got a terrific presentation for us on Iceland. We'll then go over to a Q&A with, we'll be joined by our Iceland expert, Paavo, who's actually sitting in Helsinki this evening, to take your questions. And so do, while Will's talking, do start feeding your questions through on the Q&A function. Right, so I'm Lynn Hughes. I'm the founder and editor of Wanderlust, and really looking forward to tonight. I haven't been to Iceland for a very long time, and I did double check, and I was actually there in 1996. It was a terrific trip with Discover the World, and of course Discover the World have brought us this evening tonight, so I'm really pleased that they've done that. And just so we can get a feeling, we can see where you are sitting tonight, because you're all telling us, which is brilliantly. But let's find out if you've actually been to Iceland or not. So we're going to do a quick poll just to see who's been to Iceland or not. And if the poll comes up, so yes, so the options are you've been, yes, you're looking to go and you're going back. No, but it's definitely on the list, or just a sort of not yet. So more of an undecided. I think we've got to convince you tonight. Okay, so it's looking like a really, really good mix. So 44% say no, but it's definitely on the list. 8% not yet. 31% yes, and looking forward to going back. Okay, great. Thank you for that. We'll finish that one there. So whatever time of year you visit, of course, Iceland is going to take your breath away. And certainly when I went, it was in the summer, but it's become known in recent years as a winter destination. So this evening, we're going to have a bit of a look at Iceland through the seasons and what it offers in each season. And because I think the key message is going to be that it's a brilliant destination at any time of year. And then, as I say, we will then hand over to questions. And what we will do, and bear this in mind if we don't get round to your particular question, is tomorrow we will send out a follow-up email to you all, and it will have the recording of tonight, but it will also have in some of the questions and answers, including the ones that we can't get onto tonight. So please do keep those questions flowing. So, quick introduction to tonight's speaker. I'm delighted to welcome Will Gray. Will's an award-winning travel journalist and photographer, and he's actually a contributing editor to Wanderlust. So you'll have seen his articles, read his articles many times over the years. He's a passionate advocate of responsible tourism, of course, and he's worked with Discover the World for many years, visiting Iceland on a number of trips, so enjoying the Northern Lights, orca watching, hiking amongst volcanoes, and lots of other exhilarating Icelandic experiences. So Will, without further ado, can you please take us away?
Thank you very much, Lynn. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As Lynn mentioned, I've worked with Discover the World for many years, enjoying several trips to Iceland with them. And this incredible destination, as I'm sure many of you know, began welcoming tourists again back in June. And Discover the World have been working really closely with their local partners to support the return of tourism, so you can plan your trip, your holiday there with every confidence. You'll find more information on the Discover the World website, which I'm just going to bring up there, discovertheworld.com, or by talking indeed to one of their Iceland travel specialists. And don't forget, now that we're all experts on Zoom, despite today's technical hitch, and FaceTime, you can now arrange a virtual appointment with the people at Discover the World so you can discuss your holiday plans with them. Now, in just 30 minutes, I'm going to try and give you a year-round experience of Iceland. If you're quick, it's still possible to get away on a last-minute summer holiday there. And there are some great 30%, up to 30% savings on some of Discover the World's summer self-drives. So if you're quick, you can get in there and bag yourself a bargain. And then, of course, we'll be heading into September and October, which are two fantastic months covering Iceland's spectacular autumn. And then after that, as winter approaches, we head into the wonderful Northern Lights season and all the other highlights of winter that Iceland has to offer. So lots of ground to cover, but just to start with, I wanted to give you just a little bit of background to Discover the World, because I think it's quite important to put this in context, because they've been planning or organizing holidays to Iceland for some 37 years now. They really are the world leader in Iceland, and they actually were the world's first tour operator to offer self-drive itineraries there, as well as river rafting, snowmobiling, and super jeep safaris. And way back in 1993, they practically invented whale watching, which now attracts, hundreds of thousands of visitors a year to Iceland. They also launched school trips there and were the first UK tour operator to offer dedicated Northern Lights holidays to the country. I think as a freelance travel writer, it's always encouraging and quite rare to find an independent travel operator with that kind of heritage. And when dealing with the experts at Discover the World with their Iceland trips, I always get that feeling that you're really talking to genuine experts who've been there, have done the things, stayed in their places, and really know the place inside out. That kind of passion, I think, that kind of first-hand knowledge really counts for a lot these days, when there's so much online that you're not sure whether to trust or not. Also, in these days of uncertainty, these very challenging times we're going through at the moment, Discover the World have a new flexibility promise, which I think is also worth mentioning up front here. It offers that all-important peace of mind and financial security when booking your destination. Just to run through the key points very quickly, you can change your travel dates or destination up to 7 days prior to departure. You can also transfer your booking to another person suggested by you up to 7 days before leaving. And if Discover the World has to cancel your holiday for whatever reason, they'll give you a full refund, not just a credit note. And also, if you're traveling in Iceland and you or a member of your party develop COVID-19 symptoms, prior to travel, or if any of you are forced to self-isolate and can no longer travel, Discover the World will refund all the recoverable holiday costs upon receiving written evidence. So that's worth knowing and gives you good peace of mind. But let's dive into the actual destination now. What's so special about Iceland? Why are we so desperate to return to this amazing destination or encourage first-time visitors to visit the land of fire and ice? Now, if I could only use one word to describe Iceland, I think it would have to be dynamic. Take the light, for example. It's constantly changing. Sunset here making the horsetail plume of Seljalandsfoss waterfall on the south coast glow a rich gold color. To the more subtle tones here, sea mist sandwiched between those Viennetta striped mountains and summer meadows. I think this is taken in North Iceland or maybe the East Fjords. If, like me, you're a photographer, Iceland's quality of light and the landscapes, of course, will keep you very happy indeed. But it's also dynamic in its very nature. You have volcanic rock versus ice versus sea. And it's really a continuous battle, constantly reshaping the country. You see it here at Jökulsárlón, a lagoon of icebergs shed from one of Iceland's vast ice caps. Iceland rose above the Atlantic about 18 million years ago, and it's been growing ever since, about 5 centimeters a year, I think. But the North Atlantic continually gnaws away at it. The result? Black sand beaches stretching as far as the eye can see, towering sea cliffs, some of Europe's tallest, and strange coastal features like this really beautiful sea stack on one of the peninsulas on the north coast, which, depending on where you're coming from, it's either a dragon, a rhino, or a couple of trolls having a punch-up. Rich and turbulent, right in the path of the Gulf Stream, the coast is also a magnet to wildlife. And we'll be looking at whales later, which is a big draw for many of us to Iceland. But you also get Arctic terns like this beauty here, which I photographed on the south coast near Jökulsárlón, actually, a couple of springs ago. And if you love puffins, of course, Iceland actually is one of the best places in the world to see them. The interior, Iceland's volcanic heart, is obviously the most dynamic part of the country of all. This is Thorsmork, a hidden valley that makes a breathtaking location for hiking or four-wheel drive super jeep safaris, snaking between volcanoes, crossing glacial rivers without a building or another person in sight sometimes. It really is quite an incredible place. The relationship between people and the land, how they farm, how they fish, how they harness all that natural energy that Iceland has, or horsepower indeed, is equally exciting and dynamic. And the seasons too. Iceland is definitely not a once-in-a-lifetime place to visit. You have to go at least twice, once to experience summer for those long, long days in the midnight sun up in the north, and winter, of course, for the extraordinary natural phenomenon of the Northern Lights. It's a year-round destination. This is the midnight sun, viewed from the north coast. Iceland enjoys 24-hour daylight from around late May to mid-July, but even as you go into August, you'll still be getting 15 to 16 hours of daylight, and September still has 13 hours of daylight. So plenty of time to enjoy all those amazing activities that we're going to look at in a little while. I actually love traveling in Iceland late August into September, this period that we're going towards now. It's a kind of transition period, I think, where you get the late summer highlights, still plenty of daylight to do things, but also all the lovely autumn qualities, the first hint of the Northern Lights, if you're lucky, with the first dark nights truly appearing after the long summer days. And for photography, you get much better light around sunset and sunrise, because obviously in midsummer, you don't get much of a sunset and sunrise with the 24-hour daylight. And unlike midsummer, when it's light all day long, you get this total darkness, and the Northern Lights starts to appear. I've been in Iceland on the south coast in late August and seen the Northern Lights, which is right at the beginning of the season, really. So from this period that we're entering now, right the way through until the spring equinox in March, going through into early April even, you stand a chance of seeing the Northern Lights. With the arrival of autumn, you can also witness the transformation of the tundra and the lava flows into these beautiful rich golds, reds and yellows. And of course, this is the season for berry picking, and you'll find hotel menus, rich with wonderful dishes containing blueberries, crowberries, other seasonal goodies like wild mushrooms. Traditionally, September was always the month to enjoy a self-drive in Iceland after the much busier summer season. And that's obviously changed a little bit this year because they haven't had such a busy summer season for obvious reasons. But there's still something really special, I think, about self-drive touring Iceland in the autumn. There's amazing empty roads, wonderful colors that you can see here beneath this volcanic peak here, the quality of the light, excuse me, and the great food as well. So just to recap, it's not too late to catch summer in Iceland this year. So if you travel in August and September, you get the mixture of the summer highlights like the long days and mild temperatures, great conditions for hiking, self-drive and other activities. It's peak season for whale watching through September, and the interior tracks that cross the central part of Iceland. The gravel tracks are open until mid-September too. And so September is the transition month where you can combine some of the highlights of summer with the autumn highlights. So the golden autumn colors on the tundra, the berry harvesting season, still a beautiful month for self-drive, and the northern lights visible from late August onwards. And as you go into winter, looking further afield, of course, that's prime season for northern lights watching. Orca start to gather in West Iceland. We'll look at that a little bit later on in this talk. Self-drive is still definitely possible. You know, don't be put off just because it's winter. You know, especially in the south and west where the Gulf Stream sweeps into that part of Iceland, it keeps the temperatures much milder, the roads freer of snow, and all the hire cars that you take out at that time of year have spiked tires. So it's still very much a possibility in winter. Ideal for a short break in a country hotel, especially one away from all the light pollution in Reykjavik, so you get the really dark night skies, perfect for spotting the aurora borealis. But you do have to remember, of course, that the interior is closed except for guided four-wheel drive safaris in winter. Excuse me. So there really is a great reason for visiting Iceland at any time of year. This is Godafoss up in the north. Just look at that waterfall with half the cataracts frozen into those great big icy stalactites there, and just absolutely spectacular. So I'm going to now go and share some of my favorite highlights and suggest some of the self-drive routes and holiday ideas. But of course, it's important to put all of this into context of what's changed, how travel has changed for all of us, and particularly in Iceland. So, as I'm sure many of you know, Iceland has been widely recognized for its successful response to COVID-19. It controlled the virus with large-scale testing, contact tracing and early quarantine, and isolation measures. Obviously, being an island helped, having the lowest population density in Europe helped. And Iceland's sparsely populated, wide-open landscapes makes it particularly appealing, of course, for anyone in search of a holiday with natural isolation. Now, you'll find detailed Q&As on the Discover the World website, covering everything you need to know about safe travel guidelines to Iceland before you go, while you're there, and when you come back. Flights from the UK to Iceland with Iceland Air are currently operating daily from Heathrow, I think 3 times a week from Glasgow. But again, you can check the Discover the World website for all the latest updates on flights. Now, when you arrive in Iceland, you will be required to take a COVID-19 test to avoid a 14-day quarantine. It costs £65 or £53 if booked in advance, but Discover the World will pay for this test for all of its clients traveling in August and September. Now, you should receive your test results very quickly by text within 24 hours of arrival. And you can find out more about how this works, again, on the Discover the World website, including the latest travel updates, including, of course, that you now no longer need to quarantine back in the UK following your return from Iceland. That 14-day quarantine period is not required when you return from Iceland. A lot of precautions, systems put in place to help ensure your safety, and the safety of others, of course, on the journey to and from Iceland. But now let's look at the bit in between. Now, here's a map of Iceland, obviously, and I just love maps of Iceland. I love maps in general, but Iceland is a particularly exciting map to me. All those ins and outs, very intriguing. That wonderful peninsula up on the northwest there, the West Fjords, which always reminds me of a sea fan waving in an ocean current, and the bony peninsula of the Snæfellsnes sticking out beneath it. It's really intriguing, and you can't miss that great big empty space in the middle with, you know, a few ice caps splodged across a grainy canvas of volcanic plains. It's a great map. Now let's add the road network, and you can see a few things immediately strike you. That middle bit has been left pretty much unscathed by roads. That's because there aren't any, just a few gravel tracks crisscrossing the central highlands there that are only accessible by four-wheel drive vehicles during summer. Iceland has a population of just 360,000 people, and most of them are concentrated in the southwest corner around Reykjavik and the surrounding towns there. So there's potential in this corner of Iceland for shorter, smaller circuits and short 3-4 day breaks, for example. Up in the northwest, the West Fjords, which I was just mentioning earlier, and the narrow peninsula beneath it, the Snæfellsnes, are two great locations for getting a bit more off the beaten track in stunning coastal scenery. And again, we're going to be looking at all these in a bit more detail in just a second. And of course, you can't fail to notice that a road goes all the way around Iceland, Route 1 or the Ring Road, raising the tantalizing prospect of going full circle around the country. And that's exactly what Clive Stacey, Discover the World's managing director, did in the week that Iceland reopened in June this year. I'm just going to show you a very brief 30-second video, which was one of 4 video diaries that he recorded. You can see all of them on the website, but here's just a flavor and a quick insight into his experience of what Iceland is like this summer. So Discover the World has a large range of Iceland holidays, including group tours, but we're going to be focusing mostly on self-drive trips this evening. Hopefully the popular group tours will get up and running as soon as it's possible and safe to do so. And the best thing I think to do is just to keep an eye on the website for the latest information, and maybe sign up to the e-newsletter that Discover the World put up, so you'll be the first to know when those tours become available, if that's what you're interested in. But if you love exploring beautiful places, experiencing the freedom of the road, the flexibility of a touring holiday, I think Iceland is right up there with all the other great self-drive destinations in the world. You know, I think it compares well with New Zealand, Canada, and Namibia, right up there with those. The road system is excellent, it's well made, well maintained. And I think Iceland's road builders have almost made an art form of it, arrowing these roads towards dramatic mountain vistas and waterfalls, brooding volcanoes and ice caps, or one of Iceland's 30,000 waterfalls. And in summer, of course, you've got the long hours of daylight with loads of time to explore. Self-drive, it's very straightforward in Iceland. You simply dawdle from one amazing spot to the next, joining the dots between a succession of wonderful countryside or coastal hotels and lodges. Discover the World enhanced the whole experience by giving you their free iDiscover app. It's free to download, and it's a clever digital travel guide that's fully interactive, allowing you to embellish your itinerary as you go along. So, for example, you can browse a directory of scenic wonders or must-see sites, hidden gems, places to visit. You can even look up what roadworks might be ahead, or where the nearest petrol station is, check the aurora forecast for that night, or weather forecast. So it's quite a handy little gadget to have with you. Now you've seen what the roads are like. A regular car is fine, 2-wheel drive is fine. Here's a selection you can expect to hire, from a 2-wheel drive Golf in the top left there, to a Skoda Octavia, which is an all-wheel drive vehicle. But if you want to go off-road, you need a 4-wheel drive, like the Land Cruiser in the bottom right there. So let's look at a few ideas for some great Iceland self-drives. Now, if you're looking for a relaxing summer or autumn break in Iceland, staying in a stylish country hotel, surrounded by miles of empty countryside, in this peaceful part of the country, then take a look at the Summer Nights at Ranga holiday, available right through until the end of September. Ranga is one of Iceland's leading hotels, and it really is a Discover the World favorite. And there's a really strong, long-standing relationship here. So you can be confident not only of a friendly welcome, but also the level of care and attention to detail that I think a lot of us will be looking for when we start to travel again. It's just 90 minutes from Reykjavik, just 90-minute drive, and the hotel looks out across this wonderful, wild, salmon fishing river in one direction, then look out the other way and you see the perfect cone of Mount Hekla. It's rustic, cozy, and luxurious. 8 of its 52 rooms are actually extravagant suites that are themed on the different continents. So if you've been desperate to go traveling again this year, you can actually stay in this place and combine Iceland with Africa, Asia, or Antarctica all in one holiday. Fine dining is definitely a highlight, delicious seafood from down the road. And if you like relaxing in the hot tub, geothermal pampering is compulsory in Iceland, and you can stay in those hot tubs looking at the northern lights or the midnight sun in summer. Drag yourself away from the hot tubs, and Hotel Ranga has this incredible state-of-the-art observatory where you can gaze at the cosmos and the northern lights. And they really are powerful telescopes. You can see the surface of Mars, the rings around Saturn, distant nebulae, all with a guided astronomer, all with a professional astronomer on site. So that's quite something. From October to April, you can still enjoy that self-drive holiday to Hotel Ranga on the 3-night Aurora Nights fly drive holiday. Brilliant short break, which really maximizes your chances of seeing the northern lights, because this hotel really is away from the bright city lights in the dark countryside. Hotel is also perfectly located for exploring nearby natural wonders in your own hire car, or as part of an organized tour. You could, for example, take a 4-wheel drive Super Jeep trip like this one into the interior. And it's worth remembering that a lot of these tours like this one can be booked as private trips on your own, so you're not sharing with other people. The ferry to the Westman Islands is operating, so this volcanic archipelago lying just off the south coast also makes a great day trip. Or hop in your hire car, and a short drive away, just minutes away from Hotel Ranga, you'll reach Seljalandsfoss, that beautiful waterfall that we saw earlier. Use your iDiscover app and you can track down some of the less well-known hidden gems in this part of Iceland. Literally 20 minutes away from the more popular Seljalandsfoss waterfall is this hidden gem tucked away behind a natural cliff. This is called Glyfrafoss, hidden waterfall, which is well worth tracking down. Further down the road is this big show-off, Skogafoss, which is a real poster pin-up of Iceland. You can walk through rainbows right up to the base of the falls, or climb up the side of the cliffs there to a viewing area near the top of the falls. Not far from these waterfalls, you'll find a brilliant lava center which opened just a few years ago. Has an earthquake simulator, lava corridors, huge models showing the core of the earth and how it affects Iceland's volcanoes, and even a large rooftop viewing platform. You can actually take in views, I think, of 5 different volcanoes, including Katla, Hekla, and Eyjafjallajökull, which I pronounced correctly, hooray! That infamous volcano which caused that air disruption back in 2010, I believe. Further along the coast, you reach Skaftafell. Absolutely spectacular place. We can hike into the fringes of this vast wilderness, about the size of North Yorkshire, the national park here. Ice here in the ice cap reaches depths of 950 meters. Literally smothers entire active volcanoes and mountains. And what you actually see here is not the ice cap, but one of the outlet glaciers that flows from the ice cap, which is hidden behind these mountains, you can see in the distance. And that sets the scene for something quite extraordinary, because those glaciers that are flowing from the ice cap have their snouts in coastal lagoons. And there they carve icebergs at places like Jökulsárlón, shown here. Thousands of icebergs into the water. And you can drive along the coast road and literally step out of your car and gaze at a scene like this, looking inland, across the iceberg-strewn lagoon to the outlet glacier in the middle of the picture there. And then beyond that, you can just make out the Vatnajökull ice cap covering those mountains in the distance. Closer to Hotel Ranga, the Golden Circle rounds up 3 of the country's iconic natural wonders, Finnvellir, Gullfoss, and Giza. It's a 300-kilometer loop east of Reykjavik, and you can easily do it in a day's independent touring. Gullfoss, Golden Falls, is one of Iceland's most iconic natural wonders, which you've probably seen pictures of before. It's now open again, plenty of space for you to enjoy viewpoints on this side of the waterfall. Here it is in summer. As you walk down from the car park and the visitor centre, the river just appears to simply vanish into the ground. It's only when you get up close and you can feel the ground trembling beneath you and the spray misting your face that you see this hidden canyon lying perpendicular to the waterfall. just as incredible in winter, when the spray rising from the waterfall freezes and forms these wonderful ice sculptures on the canyon walls. Also on the Golden Circle is Thingvellir National Park, a World Heritage Site, famous as the ancient open-air assembly, the world's oldest existing parliament, which met back in the year 930. But if you're a geology nerd like me, it's also a shrine to plate tectonics, because canyons like this one have actually been formed by rifting of the mid-Atlantic ridge. North American plate on one side and the Eurasian plate on the other. And you can actually go snorkeling or scuba diving through these flooded canyons between two continents. Here's a place on the Golden Circle we really don't want to be taking a dip in. Strokr is one of the world's most obliging geysers, erupting every 6 minutes or so, spouting scalding water 40 meters or so into the air. I always think it's like a big steaming exclamation mark, and you can get really close up to it for dramatic photographs. Let's look at an alternative option now for a short break in the southwest. The peninsula that Keflavik, where the international airport is, and Reykjavik is. The southern part of that makes a really interesting and different idea for a short break, with lots of volcanic and coastal scenery on the Reykjanes Peninsula. It combines really well with the Golden Circle and the Blue Lagoon. Here's an example of the holiday where you can do that self-drive exploration of that region very close to the airport if you don't fancy lots of driving, for example, but still want to get a flavor of the volcanic natural wonders of Iceland and see some of the iconic wonders on the Golden Circle, including, of course, the Blue Lagoon. You're based at the Northern Light Inn, nestled in this amazing moss-covered lavascape covered in snow here. But you're also close enough to the Golden Circle to spend a day touring that on this 3-day trip. And you're literally right next door to the Blue Lagoon, which I'm sure you've all heard of. So you get a couple of opportunities to relax in the warm, milky blue waters of this very famous outdoor geothermal spa. There are other lesser known lagoons for geothermal pampering, like the Secret Lagoon on the Golden Circle route, and other ideas which Discover the World can certainly recommend to you. But this, of course, is the most famous one. Let's zoom out now and include more of West Iceland. Now, just a couple of hours drive north from Reykjavik, the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and mountains of Borgarfjörður make another great self-drive destination that works really well in combination with Hotel Ranga, actually, in the southwest. In fact, it's such a good partnership, such a good couple of areas to work together, that the inspiration for this brand new holiday that's just been launched this summer from Discover the World, their Wonders of the Southwest holiday, which is a 7-night self-drive split mainly between Hotel Ranga and another great choice for a rural property, Hotel Husafell. So you spend a few days at Hotel Ranga, exploring the Golden Circle, Thorsmork in the interior maybe, perhaps the south coast and the Westman Islands, and then you drive north up to Hotel Husafell, which is a complete contrast to Hotel Ranga. It's modern, very stylish, much more Scandi chic, if you like, bright interiors, sculptures from local artists, and this amazing restaurant, which I love, with the floor-to-ceiling windows, providing these panoramic views of the surrounding mountains. Now, like Ranga, Hotel Husafell is never far from a natural wonder or three. This is one of my favorites, Hraunfossa, or the Lava Falls, where numerous springs emerge from under or coming out of the bits of this ancient lava flow and seep down into this river, creating this extraordinary marbling effect as the water flows down to this beautiful milky turquoise river. There are also lots of unique tours you can do in this part of Iceland. This is one of my favorites. You've got to try this one. It's called Into the Glacier. Now, you travel by 8-wheel drive vehicle. I've been told this is a converted NATO missile carrier, which I can sort of see, which has been converted into carrying passengers up onto the Langjökull ice cap, which is just inland from Hotel Husafell. That's an adventure in itself, but at the end of this journey, at the end of this little drive, you reach a man-made tunnel that's been carved into the ice cap for about half a kilometre or so. And you literally walk into the heart of an ice cap. It's quite an extraordinary experience. It's all been illuminated very, very beautifully. And some of the black, very thin black lines you can see in the ice in some of the views there, I think in this photograph as well, are actually evidence of volcanic eruptions that have happened thousands of years ago. It's quite an extraordinary experience to walk into an ice cap. Another tour, another subterranean experience is the lava tour that you can do in this part of Iceland. This time, of course, you're following boardwalks and you're going through an ancient, very dormant, don't worry, giant lava tube into the ground. And again, the colors and the formations, the rock formations are quite breathtaking. And you can easily combine both the into the glacier tour and the lava cave in one holiday. I'd also really recommend that you spend one of your days here driving around the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, that very thin, bony bit of land sticking out into the Atlantic. It's probably one of my favorite parts of Iceland. I think mainly because it condenses everything that makes the whole country special. You've got stunning coastline, a mixture of incredible sandy and black pebble beaches, sea cliffs, sea arches, blowholes. You know, for someone interested in coastal morphology, this is the place to go. But it's also got incredible mountain scenery, and to top it all, it's capped by a snow-capped volcano at the end there, Snæfellsjökull, which you can just see in the distance there, covered in ice. It's great hiking country as well, the Snæfellsnes. Amazing coastal walks, ranging from just an hour to several hours or more. Also mountain hikes, you can climb up onto the snow-covered slopes of Snæfellsjökull if you want to. And the wildlife here is excellent too. I've seen white-tailed sea eagles here. I've seen them, drifting over the ocean or pirouetting against the mountain slopes as you drive around the peninsula. I've seen sperm whales offshore on boat trips. I've seen orcas off the coast here in winter, which we're going to be seeing in a little while. I've even seen tracks of Arctic foxes in the volcanic sands on some of the more remote beaches on this peninsula. So if you're into wildlife, this is a good spot to head for. Here, the orca that I mentioned. Now, why are there orca coming here? Well, in winter, huge shoals of herring overwinter in the sheltered bays and fjords on the north coast of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. And the orca, being very intelligent animals, know this, and they move into this area during February and March, and they hunt down the orcas. It's one of the most incredible wildlife spectacles I've witnessed in the last 30 years. It really is. As well as seeing the orca prowling offshore on the boat trip with Kirkjufell, that very famous mountain in this region, as a backdrop. I've actually stood on the harbour wall in Grundarfjordur, one of the little coastal villages on this peninsula, and seen a pod of 10, 15 orcas driving herring literally 10 meters or 15 meters off the harbour wall, going past us, driving the herring towards the coast to try and cut them off and feed on them. So you don't even need to go on a boat trip, you can actually just stand on the land and sometimes see them. It's incredible. Now, led by expert whale watching and Northern Lights guides, Discover the World have an Orcas and Aurora guided group trip, which operates in February and March. And it's one of those group tours that I mentioned earlier that they're hoping to get up and running as soon as it's safe and possible to do so. So do keep an eye out for that one as and when it becomes available, because it really is quite a special trip. The photography, if like me, you're a photographer, the photography on the Snæfellsnes is just fantastic. 1 minute you can be photographing orca, hunting herring offshore. The next minute you're bent double over these incredible beaches of the most perfectly polished basalt pebbles like this one, garnished with a storm-stranded starfish. Then you could be in a sheltered harbour photographing eider ducks, carving up their reflections in the sheltered waters. If you love wild places, if you love wildlife, look no further. It really is a spectacular location. I think I've sold the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Let's move on, because across the Breidafjordur Bay there, from the Snæfellsnes looking north, you come to the West Fjords. Now, if you really want to get off the beaten track, look no further than this very remote, little visited part of Iceland. There's a new 14-night holiday, self-drive again, from Discover the World, called Iceland Backroads, which actually combines the West Fjords and Snæfellsnes, which is a really great combination, actually, returning via Hotel Husafell, and even including time to do the Golden Circle and experience the South Coast as well. So why should you go to the West Fjords? Well, I probably don't need to say anything. You just need to look at that waterfall and you think, that's got to be on my bucket list. I mean, it's just the most amazing waterfall. This is Dinyandi. And what's so incredible about this waterfall is that it's just the top of it. There are actually 7 cascades in this waterfall. So beneath of that lady is standing on the right there. There are another 6 cascades pouring down into the fjord, as well as that mighty fan-shaped one at the top there. Just extraordinary. This will also put you in a spin. The Latrabag sea cliffs, Iceland's westernmost point and some of its tallest sea cliffs, over 400 meters high, and also the setting for Europe's largest seabird city. Now, if you've been to Pembrokeshire maybe and seen the seabird islands off the coast there, this is like Skomer on steroids. It's a top spot for puffins between May and early August. They are beginning to leave about now, puffins. They arrive in May. They have quite an early breeding season, like many of the seabirds there. They're starting to head out to sea now. So during August, you might see fewer on land, but they'll be forming rafts on the offshore waters before heading out to sea, where they spend the rest of the year before returning again next May. But it's also a top spot for other seabirds moving into that high-rise real estate. Birds like guillemots, gannets, kittiwakes, fulmars, razorbills. Brilliant. I just think you really feel like you've got away from it all when you spend a bit of time touring the West Fjords. As well as those black pebble beaches, you get, unusually for Iceland, red sand beaches like this one. So if you love the idea of West Iceland, want to do less driving than perhaps the West Fjords involves, and perhaps prefer self-catering to a hotel, then I've got another idea for you. This is Glacier Lodge, which has discovered the world's 3-bedroom property on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. This is available year-round. A 3-night West Iceland escape is perfect if you're looking for an independent short break, spectacular location, just a 2-hour drive from Reykjavik. This is the property. You just step out of your door, you've got hiking right on your doorstep, some amazing beaches and cliff-top scenery, and lots of activities that you can do, from whale watching to snowmobiling on the ice cap. Some of Iceland's most iconic sites can be found nearby. This is probably one of the most photographed places or most photographed mountains, I should say, in Iceland. Kirkjufell, sometimes called Harry Potter's hat. I prefer Kirkjufell, shown here after an autumn storm, that beautiful rainbow. But just look at this, the northern lights over the same mountain with Grundarfjörður in the distance there. And that's the bay you move out into on your boat trips, looking for the orcas during February and March. And you do your whale watching the day, and at night you go aurora watching. What could be more fantastic? If you want a winter self-drive in the west of Iceland, take a look at this one, Northern Lights Glaciers and Waterfalls. 4 nights exploring the south and the west, staying in rural bolt holes with that all-important mixture of properties that are in dark sky locations. I can't emphasize that enough. Don't be tempted into going to Reykjavik on a short Northern Lights break, because you really need to get away from the bright city lights which cause artificial light pollution and affect your Northern Lights enjoyment. And finally, people often ask me, what about going all the way around Iceland, going full circle? It really is one of the world's classic drives. I'm sure it's been featured in Wanderlust many times. It's about 1,300 kilometer circumnavigation of the country. It rounds up all of the natural wonders into one amazing itinerary, all the wildlife and all the other highlights. But what you really want to think about is an itinerary that allows you to linger in some of the best locations. Otherwise, it can just become a mad dash from one spot to another. So you need to pick an itinerary a bit like this one, perhaps 14 nights, where you've got a couple of nights at least in some of the key locations. I think this would work really well in September for the reasons we talked about earlier, the great light, less people, the wonderful colors and so on. We've looked at many of the highlights in Iceland already. Here's a car heading towards the Vatnajökull ice cap in the south. But going all the way around Iceland, of course, you'll also have a chance to visit the East Fjords, one of my favorite parts of Iceland. Again, very little visited. You'll visit beautiful little villages like Seyðisfjörður, shown here, which has a very vibrant arts and culture scene, and some beautiful scenery too. And of course, up in North Iceland, you'll witness some of Iceland's most astonishing natural wonders, including Dettifoss, shown here, Europe's most powerful waterfall. I think the stats are pretty mind-blowing. It's 200 cubic meters of water falling 45 meters into that canyon every second, which sounds quite impressive, but you really have to go there and stand right next to it, like this lady is, perhaps a little bit too close to it, I have to say. But it reminds me of this sort of a gigantic frothing cappuccino machine, because it's carrying all the silt-laden water from the volcanic interior down into this cascade. It really is quite something. And Lake Miva, also in the north of Iceland, a huge spring-fed lake, fresh water with a road all the way around it, which you can tour in a day or two, visiting an amazing range of volcanic features, volcanic cones, geothermal springs, and it's full of incredible wildlife. Bird watchers arrive here in their droves to see wild ducks, swans, divers. It's a great spot for that. And of course, off the north coast, you also have whales. Not just humpbacks, everyone's favorites, but also minke whales, and if you're very lucky, blue whales, orcas, white-beaked dolphins are common, and large numbers of seabirds as well. And you set out from Husavik in these wonderful converted herring trawlers that have found a new lease of life as whale-watching boats, and you can get some incredible encounters with humpbacks. They're having a particularly good season for humpbacks this summer, I've been told. Well, I hope that's given you plenty of inspiration and confidence, actually, for visiting or considering visiting Iceland, either this summer for a late break, autumn, or considering winter or the following summer. Remember, whenever you choose to travel, the Iceland specialists at Discover the World are ready to help you plan your holiday, whether it's a self-drive or a guided tour. Don't forget that flexibility promise. I think that's really important to remember in this day and age, that Discover the World offer for that crucial financial security and peace of mind. And don't write off this summer. I think I'd finish by saying there are some fantastic savings to be had still, but I think you're also going to experience Iceland quite uniquely this summer, being quieter, emptier, and even more incredible than it usually is. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm now going to hand back to Lynn for our Q&A session.
Thanks, Will. Oh, good grief. Only going to look at everybody's comments. So many fantastic comments coming up about that. That's really magical, and that's really inspired everybody to go. So thank you so much for that. And I know I definitely want to go again. It's been far too long. And let's welcome Paavo to join us. So Paavo Sonninen is Head of Nordic Product at Discover the World. He's actually joining us from Helsinki. He is a native Finn, but he's also an honorary Icelander, and Paavo lived in Iceland for several years, working there for an adventure travel company. Was able to indulge his passion for the outdoors. So I've been told there's nothing that Paavo doesn't know about Iceland. So let's try and put him to the test. No pressure, Paavo.
No pressure. Thank you for the introduction.
But yeah, lots and lots of questions, and some of them which were touched on. So I think we'll try and whiz through them all. So, for instance, well, somebody asking, for instance, about how disabled friendly is Iceland. You know, what's accessibility like?
That's a really good question, and if we start with hotels, it is very disabled friendly, because by the law, all hotels must have certain number of rooms which are disabled accessible and friendly, and all facilities in the hotel must be suitable for all visitors. Then some of the popular sites, they are definitely disabled friendly. For example, on the Golden Circle, if you go to the Thingvellir National Park, from the parking lot, they made these paths to the viewing platform. It's all even. And same in the Gullfoss waterfall, there's a pathway all the way to the upper viewing platform, and it's accessible for everyone. Then of course, depends on the activity and excursion types. Some are more accessible than others. For example, the Into the Glacier tour that we talked earlier, there are quite steep steps to the vehicle. Will, you were absolutely right. It is an old NATO missile launcher that has been converted into a passenger vehicle. So there are these steps. But then on the other hand, for example, the lava cave tour that you mentioned, they have made these really good pathways. Again, there are some steps, but you will have handrails. So it really depends on the customer's requirements and the level of sort of steps and how uneven or even surface it has to be. But the best thing is to give us a call, and then we'll discuss these individually, because every customer is unique, and then the requirements are unique. Is it more on the south coast, or do the customers want to travel all around the country, or maybe stay only in Reykjavik? Because again, capital area, you will have far more, vast, bigger selection of facilities and services available. So definitely don't think you can't go. Everyone can go to Iceland, and we'll find a way.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. And also, somebody else said, if they're not into hiking, will they be able to see the natural wonders? Are they something that you can actually get to relatively easily?
I think they really are. Yeah, I mean, just looking at some of the popular natural wonders like Seljalandsfoss, that waterfall, for example, that South Coast road. Actually, thinking about it, you literally drive along it, and you're stopping every few minutes because there's a new waterfall to see, and you literally park your car, and it's sometimes literally right there beside the road, because it's quite a narrow coastal plain in places. The road is sort of squeezed between the sea and the volcanic interior, so you really are right up close to some of these natural wonders. Even Dettifoss, you park in the car park, and it's an easy walk down to the viewing points. Some of the beaches, you just literally park the car. Jökulsárlón, the glacier lagoon, for example, you're driving along, and there it is going past you on your left. But that doesn't mean to say that it's spoiling the experience, because you can very quickly get away from the cars, the road, and feel like you're in complete wilderness. So if you want that sort of feeling as well, that's possible at all these locations. It's quite a nice combination, really.
Okay, brilliant. We've had a couple of questions about solo travel. Is it suitable for solo travellers, and are female solo travellers safe there?
Solo travelers definitely welcome. We do also get solo travelers on self-drive holidays. We do get solo travelers on our group tours and on our own escorted group tours, and everyone is safe. And definitely solo women travelers, they do not need to be afraid to go to Iceland. It's a very safe country, and everyone is friendly and welcoming in Iceland.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
Just watch out for the elves.
Yeah.
Just watch out for the elves.
Oh, watch out for the elves. Yeah, I've heard about those pesky elves.
Yeah.
Very naughty. And what about if somebody doesn't want to self-drive? Are there other options?
Absolutely. We can organize transfers. You don't need to only stay in Reykjavik. You can also stay in the countryside, even at the Hotel Ranka, like Will was discussing earlier. It is 90 minutes away from Reykjavik, but transfer options can be booked, private transfers, and then you book activities from the hotel, and you don't need to drive. And then like I said, we also have group tours, which oftentimes start from the airport, from the Keflavik. So our guides will be there ready with the sign, and then you only need to be on the right plane to make sure it gets to Keflavik in Iceland, and then look for a Discover the World logo, and we will take care of the rest. You will.
Okay, well, very easy. Back onto the driving. What side of the road do you drive on, and do you need a photo driving license?
Yes, well, I say on the right side because I'm a Finn. So, yes, on the same side as in Europe, yes, on the right side of the road, and yes, you would need a photo. That's my experience, that you would need to have a driver's license with a photography. Okay. But it would be the same requirements as you have in the European Union area and in the UK. So UK driver's licenses.
Okay, because Will, obviously you'll have driven there a lot. Presumably it's fairly easy and straightforward though, even if they do drive on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, you get used to it very quickly. What I like about picking up a car in Iceland is Keflavik is about half an hour drive from Reykjavik. So most people pick up the hire car, and you immediately drive out of the airport, and you're immediately on this road driving through a lava scape, basically. So it's quite a nice, gentle introduction. It's not like you're being piled straight into a horrendous, multi-lane system on the edge of a big city. It's very gentle. You get plenty of time to get the feel of the car and on a nice, long, straight road. And as I mentioned in the talk, the roads are really easy. They're often, they're always beautifully maintained and looked after, and the cars are easy to drive. So yeah, I've never had a problem with it at all. Even if they do drive on the wrong side of the road, you just get used to it.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. We've had several food ones. What about vegetarian food? Is it vegetarian friendly? And what about gluten free as well?
I would say yes. Things have changed a lot. 12 years ago, when I went there first, vegetarians definitely had a hard time. But now, in the past few years, when more and more visitors have come to Iceland, more and more services, restaurants, and they are able to cater all these requests. So again, capital area in Reykjavik, yes, you will find gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan dietary and options. And on this around in the countryside, definitely in the bigger towns or cities. But if you would like to stay in one of the smaller guest houses in the countryside, which are family run, they might only have limited option, 1 or 2 dishes per meal. Then it's best for us. We'll just check in advance, and it's simple as that. We'll notify them, and then they are most likely able to cater it and have it ready because they know when the customers will be arriving.
Okay. And what are the kind of food and drink specialities somebody will expect to come across?
Ooh, well, for non-vegetarians, the lamb is fantastic. Sorry for vegetarians. The seafood, I think, is stunning. It's so fresh. There's some beautiful lobster and shellfish, fresh fish. It's beautiful. But I think what makes it really special is the seasonal changes. We talked about the berry season and the mushroom season. When that comes into the dishes, some of the best mushroom risottos I've had there. It's just been wonderful. It's not all skyr yogurt. There's a great variety of things. So yeah, as Paavo was saying, great choice whether you want lamb, lobster, vegetarian, gluten-free. It caters to everything. And of course, one of the most famous dishes is the Icelandic hot dog, which is available at all good service stations around. Probably not the healthiest choice, but probably has to be tried.
Yeah.
Keep going when you need a quick meal and you want to have one.
Yeah. And somebody asked about tipping. Does one tip? What's the tipping culture?
It's not part of Icelandic culture. It's the same as in the Nordic countries. It's not expected. Of course, people will appreciate it if you leave a tip, but it's not the same as in other countries. For example, at Hodaranká, in their menu, they have a statement where they say that if you leave a tip, it doesn't go to the staff, but it goes to the local search and rescue team, because the hotel, they say, we do pay our staff accordingly. We pay them a good salary, so tipping is not expected, but they would like to support the local community where the volunteers are called in when there's a storm or there's an accident or someone is missing, call out for missing person. So that is the hotel's way to support the organization, which I think is a really nice thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, what a lovely idea. Somebody's asked, can you take your dog on a self-drive?
Gosh, I don't know about dogs. I'd like to take my dog. I think she'd be pretty hopeless and nice.
That might be one that we need to research a bit more into, I think. Do you think, Paavo? Yes. Paavo, find that one out.
I don't think I have gotten this question before, to be honest. We need to find out. Let's do some research.
I can see potential for a whole new series of dog-friendly holidays to Iceland, Paavo. I think you're missing
exactly. Now, Will, you touched on this in your talk about natural spas other than the Blue Lagoon, and I know you actually named 1 or 2, didn't you? So somebody's asking about that.
Yeah, there are so many, and actually, when you're doing your self-drive tour and you've got that little iDiscover app loaded onto your phone, you can actually search for all the nearby geothermal spas and places that you can visit, and then you can actually add them to your itinerary. So yes, it's not just the Blue Lagoon. I mentioned the Secret Lagoon, which is on the Golden Circle route. That's much less busy and sort of, I guess, more rustic feeling than the Blue Lagoon. Up in the north, I've been to the Miva nature bath, which is quite amazing. It's sort of set up on the side of a mountain slope and looks right out across this huge Lake Miva, this huge freshwater lake. And at sunset, you're facing west and you can see the sun setting over the lake while you're languishing in these geothermal pools. That's pretty special. But also on a much smaller scale, there are places where just little hot tubs have been carved into the rock, or a little, for example, in near Hotel Husafell, there's just in a canyon, a short walk from the hotel, they've opened some new baths there, which have just been created from natural spring waters there. And you just sort of languish in them. It's just brilliant. There are sort of hot waterfalls as well, if you can track them down, where you just sort of drive up and stand underneath a geothermal waterfall. So it's not just the big pools like Blue Lagoon or Miva Nature Baths, the much smaller scale ones as well. And of course, hot tubs are very common in a lot of the properties as well, like Hotel Rangau. We saw the wonderful outdoor hot tubs. You just sink into those and enjoy the midnight sun or the northern lights. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Plenty of choice.
Oh, wonderful. Has the Beluga Whale Sanctuary opened yet?
In Westman Islands.
Yeah.
Yes, I think yes, it has been. They currently the beluga whales they've kept indoors. I don't believe the outdoor area has been opened yet. At least that was the most recent information I found looking.
Okay. Yeah. So people who don't know, these were some beluga whales that have been rescued from a life in captivity and are being reintroduced back out into a much more natural. They've been taken back over to Iceland, which is wonderful. Is English widely spoken?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
You could easily speak English everywhere in the country.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah. And somebody, I can't see the question now, but somebody asked about driving around doing the whole of the Ring of Iceland. Yeah, if you're driving the entire ring road, would you recommend going clockwise or anti-clockwise? And I think somebody else also asked about how much time to allow if they were doing the whole of Iceland.
It's a good question, isn't it? Anti-clockwise or clockwise? I mean, personally, I probably would do it anti-clockwise, I think. It depends, maybe if you're a first-time visitor, it's quite nice to go down anti-clockwise. Yes, anti-clockwise. I'm going on the south coast first because you see some of the really big, obvious natural wonders first, I guess, like the big waterfalls, Seljalandsfoss, Skogafoss. You know, within your first day of your trip, you'd have ticked off, if you like, big waterfalls, major volcanoes, huge black sand beaches. Then as you sort of go around into the East Fjords and up onto the north, you may be seeing more specialized things. So I perhaps did anti-clockwise, but I don't think there's any reason logistically for doing it one way or the other, is there, Paavo?
No, I was going to say it's just a personal preference. Yeah. But I agree, somehow it feels more natural to do it that way, like you say, for a first-time visitor, and then you will end into the more remote locations. And yes, there was a question about if you would include the West Fjords area to it. I would say 14 nights is a good starting point. And then just to highlight the fact that we are a tailor-made company, and all the itineraries we have online, self-drive itineraries, we can make them longer or shorter. They can be all just tailored to the requirements and durations. That if you have a month, then definitely it won't be too long. There's so much to see and do, and less you have to cover in a day, the nicer it is that you drive a little bit, then you allow yourself a lot of time to wander around, take pictures. But then of course you can do it in a faster pace if you don't have some days. But yes, to include the whole country, let's start with 14 nights and then take it from there.
Okay, great. Are there any hotels close to the Central Highlands to spend 3 or 4 days there, or do you have to camp?
There are a couple hotels sort of here in the this area. They are not as high in standard, but hotel, it has a bed and a shower and roof on top of your head. But if you go completely across on the Sprängkissand or Highland Road, there will be a bit that there's no infrastructure, but usually customers plan it so that you stay in the hotel close to the inlands, and then in one day you drive across to the north part of the country, and then you find the next hotel.
Okay. We've had a couple of people asking about whether any special insurance is needed. So sand and gravel insurance, or what about driving vehicles cross streams?
We, for example, work with insurance for car hire, which is an additional insurance policy to bring the excess down. But there is no insurance that would cover water damages. If you cross a river and then floods the engine, then there's no insurance policy for that.
Okay.
But on that note, we'll mention to take the Super Jeep trip to Thorsmörk Valley, and this is an excellent sort of idea or thing to mention, that you could drive all the way to the end of the valley in Thorsmörk, but because of this, you don't know how high the water level is. You don't want to put yourself in that stress. Better to book a guided trip, and the guide, they're fantastic, they're so entertaining, and then you get into this beast of a vehicle, and then they cross the rivers and they show how it's done, and they play around a little bit, and you get so much more out of it, and you are so relaxed in the day.
Okay. Because I think, because somebody's asking about whether it's recommended to have off-road experience first. Well, presumably you wouldn't try, as I say, sort of driving through rivers and things if you haven't.
We did a trip once with a couple of other families, and we had a convoy of Kia Sorentos, which was one of the cars you can hire, they're four-wheel drive, and we did do a day trip from the Lake Miva area down to Askja, which is one of the big volcanic caldera, right in the middle of Iceland, pretty much. It's a very, very long drive there, and it does involve a couple of river crossings. I wouldn't have done it if I was just on my own, because if you get into difficulties, you want another car to be able to tow you out potentially. So that's the first thing I'd say. I don't have a huge amount of four-wheel drive experience, but it was fine with the three vehicles. They're very visible tracks that you follow. You don't stray from those tracks because you can damage the landscape, scar the landscape. And when we came to the river crossings, we obviously stopped. We didn't just go charging in like Jeremy Clarkson. We stopped and assessed how deep it was, and maybe waited for another vehicle to go through first before we took the plunge, and then just drive very slowly through the river and pray. Basically, no, it was fine. It was safe. Just don't take any unnecessary risks, really, if you're doing it on your own. But I'd really echo what Paavo says about joining a guided tour, because the guides just give that extra element. They tell you about the wildlife, the culture. They're full of great stories, and these super jeeps are just such good fun to be in, even as a passenger.
Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, Linda. I was going to add that there are some basic guidelines on river crossings that if you want to do it, and some of them streams they're more shallow and easy, and we can tell you what is then the logic, where to go and how to read the river a little bit. But like Will also says, it's always good to see if someone else goes first and then follow.
Quite. Food keeps coming up again. So do they still eat fermented shark?
Yes, they do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can do.
And you can too. And does Iceland have its own famous dessert?
Favorite dessert? I would say chocolate cake or a skyr cake.
Skyr cake, yeah. Okay, what's the average price for a lunch or a dinner, and how much for a bottle of beer?
As we talked about it a bit earlier, that the Icelandic krona has weakened against the pound now. It's around 170, 180 kronas to 1 pound. So I would guess lunch at the moment is around maybe 15 pounds, 15 to 20. Then dinner average, just the main course, I think, would be maybe 20, 25. And if you would have a 3-course meal, I would think around £40, because again, it depends on the restaurant and the style of it. A bottle of beer, if you would buy it from the alcohol store, that is probably a couple pounds, and then in a restaurant, maybe around £5. And then if you have a pint of beer, that's £7-8. I think so.
Yeah, okay. So it's still not a cheap destination, but certainly better value at the moment.
Yes, yes.
It's not a cheap destination, but I always like to think that you just get so much for free. I mean, on a self-drive trip, once you've paid for your vehicle, got there, for example, paid for your accommodation, a lot of what you're doing is obviously just driving, but enjoying these natural wonders that are free.
Yeah.
There's very, I can't think of very many places where you have to pay to go and see spectacular waterfalls like that, which rival places around the world. And so you can easily, save money by just doing the simple things, hiking, sightseeing, enjoying beach walks. There's lots of it doesn't cost you a penny.
Oh, really good point. And when is the best month to see Northern Lights?
Well, the equinoxes are particularly good for some fiendishly complicated physical reason, which I won't go into now. So basically the Northern Lights season is from late August through to March, April time. So that's mainly because the nights are dark enough for you to be able to see the Aurora Borealis. But the equinox periods, autumn equinox and spring equinox, see a particularly good burst of Northern Lights activity, if you like. So you can sometimes raise your chances. It's never guaranteed, of course, but you can sometimes raise your chances of seeing the Aurora during that time. But other factors to really think about are, as I mentioned or I touched on in the talk, are to try and, if you're particularly keen on maximizing your chance of seeing the Northern Lights, is to get away from artificial light pollution. Don't just go to Reykjavik and stay in a hotel and expect to see really dazzling aurora displays. You want to get out somewhere rural where there's no light, very little light pollution, so the skies are really intensely dark. And also a lot of those rural properties are very well set up for Northern Lights watching. Hotel Rangau, for example, had that amazing observatory. So you might get to chat to a local astronomer who can just give you so much information and give you an incredible insight into it. And the hotel itself has an Aurora wake-up call, so you can go to bed and they'll wake you if there's a display, so you don't even have to stay up all night waiting for it. So yes, try and think about the place as well as the time when it comes to Northern Lights watching.
Yeah, sure. And for a first-time visitor, Paavo, what would you recommend they do for a first time? Presumably they must do Reykjavik and the Golden Circle, but would you say, or?
It depends on how many days you have. If let's say you have up to 7 days, then must would be all year round on the south coast and include the Golden Circle, visit to Reykjavik and the waterfalls on the south coast, and go all the way to Jökulsárlón and back. That you can do comfortably in 7 days all year round. If you are going in summertime, then definitely go around Iceland. Take minimum 10 days up to 14, and you could leave the West Fjords for the second visit and just follow the road number 1 and do that. Wintertime, first time visits tend to be 3 to 4 nights, and again, south coast, sightseeing, Golden Circle, and that's it. And then usually people go back, maybe next season, maybe summer season, just to contrast. It's amazing.
Terrific. Will you need a visa if visiting from the UK next year?
I assume this is related to Brexit, if we're talking about next year.
Oh, of course, yeah, it probably is, isn't it? Yes.
The difficult question. At the moment, does anyone know? Do we have any certainty on what will happen? So I don't have a definite answer, to be honest. I'm really hoping not. And I would be very surprised personally if we would need to, but I can't guarantee.
Okay, back to driving. Are there frequent fuel stations, or do you need to plan for those?
I think yes. I've never had a problem with fuel stations, and again with that iDiscover app, you can actually look ahead and find out where your nearest fuel station is, so you can plan your route. and sort of make sure you never run out. I think the only thing to be wary of is when maybe you're doing a drive into the interior. Obviously, there are no petrol stations in the interior, so you need to make sure you've got a full tank and a big enough tank to get where you want to go and back out again. And maybe on some of the longer drives, when you're going from the East Fjords up across that north eastern plateau area towards Lake Miva, there's a bit more of a lonely area with less settlements. So you want to make sure you fill up in Eyjestadia, the town in near the East Fjords before you set off. Just a little bit of planning, but you can sort of do that on the morning you set off. Just look at your iDiscover app, work out where the nearest petrol station is, fill up if you need to.
Okay, terrific. And are there many short stay self-catering places around the island, or is it mainly hotels?
It's a mixture, yes. In some areas you can find more self-catering options, which is typically on the south coast. And then, like we talked earlier, the Glacier Lodge in Snæfellsnes, west part of the country, that's Discover the World owned property, and that's self-catering. So again, it depends on where the customers want to go. We will do our very best to find the right property. And like I said, we've been operating for 37 years in Iceland. We have a lot of contacts and we know who to ask and where to go, and we'll find it. If it's there, we will find it.
Okay, brilliant. Can you pick up a car at Akurey Airport and leave it at Keflavik? And
Yes.
How many miles is that? Right.
We actually have itineraries where you take a domestic flight from Reykjavik Airport to Akureyri and then drive the 3/4 of the country and drop it to Keflavik, or do the vice versa, or any different combination. And we work exclusively with Europcar in Iceland, and they have many car hire depots around the country, so not
Okay. Are there many toilets around? or is this a case? There won't be many bushes to go behind, I presume.
No, that's the thing. You don't have a forest. If you have 2 trees, that's a forest in Iceland. That's a really very current topic. But yes, you have service stations, you have gas stations around the country, and nowadays there are more cafes and restaurants available around the country. On some of the natural sites and the waterfalls and others, they have started to add facilities and toilets for visitors because things have grown, visitor numbers have grown, but
Yeah, sure.
they can still improve in the future.
Okay. Somebody who went last in 1999 when it was very wild, has it changed a lot?
Yes, I would say it has definitely changed, but with the recent increase in visitor numbers in the past years, you have now more facilities, you have different activities around the country, you have restaurants, cafes, and things have been maintained better, you have better road network, roads are in better condition. But at the same time, this summer, due to the current situation, you will not have as many visitors or other travelers as you would have had in the summer 19. So if you go now, you might feel that you are in that time, but with better facilities. So it could be a very interesting combination.
Yeah. And which lagoon is Iceland's favourite?
Sorry, can I have the question again?
A lagoon, a lake, lagoon, or lagoon as in...
Favorite one, of course, Blue Lagoon for bathing, and then you have Jökulsárlón on the glacier lagoon in the southeast, where you can see the icebergs which are carving from the Breiðamerkurjökull glacier, and they flow through the river to the ocean. That is definitely the most popular visit. Like Will said, it's just right next to the road, so you can't miss it.
Okay.
We can mention actually at Jökulsárlón, the glacier lagoon is on the one side you have the lagoon with the icebergs, and as Paavo just said, they're being washed out to the ocean, and they sort of get tumbled around in the waves and eroded, and quite a lot of them are cast back onto this black sand or black pebbly beach at the coast there, and they take on these wonderful bright blue ice sculptures really, and it's a really popular spot for photographers, especially at dusk when the setting sun shines through these ice sculptures that have been washed back onto the black sand beach. The colors and the shapes are just fantastic. So it's a special place, and you know, I've been there in June. There's quite a well-known Arctic tern colony just to the side there. Don't want to get too close to these birds because they're very protective of their nests and they'll dive bomb you and extract strands of hair from your head if you're not careful. You don't want to disturb them anyway. But so there's a lot going on there, you know, from the diamond ice beach as it's known to the glacier lagoon to the Arctic tern colonies. It's it's the best lagoon in Iceland, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard a lot, and I've heard a lot about those notorious terns as well.
Oh,
Yes. We are going to have to wind up in a minute, sadly. So just to remind everybody that we will send a follow-up email out tomorrow. Do look out for that, because we'll have a recording of tonight, but we'll also have a link to the questions and answers as well. And if there are any questions we couldn't get onto tonight, we'll have those in there, because I know there's questions still coming in, and I think we do need to let our speakers kind of finish at some point. So what I'm going to ask them as a final question in a minute is what their favourite place or activity is in Iceland. But just before that, just want to say a massive thank you to them both. It's been such a great session. Will, we got so many comments on some of your descriptions, well, about your Viennetta striped mountains and the trolls having a punch up. So that was so brilliant. So thank you so much for that. And Paavo, you have indeed been a font of knowledge. So who wants to go first? What's your favourite sort of place or activity that you would recommend?
Paavo, after you.
My favorite is here in the West Fjords, in the northern tip, Hornstrandir National Park. Very isolated. You can only access it by boat from Ísafjörður during summer season. You go there hiking and trekking. You have to carry everything with you, all food, everything, and you just disappear into the wilderness. You hardly see anyone else. Amazing landscape and nature. And I can't wait to go back. I was due to go this summer, but now it's going to be summer 21, and just to go trekking for a week and just be one with the nature. No cell phone connection, no 3G, no Wi-Fi.
Oh, bliss. Yeah, sounds really good. Okay, Will, and what's yours?
It's a really difficult question, actually. I mean, I mentioned the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, that bony finger of land sticking out beneath the West Fjords. It is, people often say it's like a microcosm of Iceland because it sort of encapsulates all that's special about it. And I think it is brilliant for wildlife and landscape, all the rest of it. But sometimes I think the most special place is where you have the most memorable experience. And I remember learning to horse ride. You'd like this, Lynn, being a professional horse rider yourself. I remember horse riding in the East Fjords with a slightly eccentric but very passionate guide who took me from not really getting near a horse to galloping through glacial rivers and horse riding up the side of mountains to deserted waterfalls. We had this entire valley to ourselves. Then she took me back to her farm and she laid out this amazing feast in front of me. And I just thought that was, it might not have been the most spectacular part of Iceland, but that experience and all the elements that went into it, meeting that local person, learning about her life, and it was just incredible. So I think the East Fjords would be my favourite place.
Oh, that does sound good. And particularly on an Icelandic horse, of course. Oh, well, so sorry, the questions are still coming in. There's so many. Don't forget, of course, as well as us sending out the email tomorrow, you can, of course, call up Discover the World and speak to one of the experts there, because they would obviously be able to answer all these questions too. So, yeah, so please do that. Please do look at the e-shot together. And thank you so much to Paavo and Will. That was cracking. It was such an inspirational evening, and I know everybody really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Good night, all. See you in Iceland.
See you there. Bye.